Hello everybody and welcome to another video. In this video I am going to be giving you my impressions about the cities of Sigmar. So the Cities of Sigmar launch book is out, box, and a lot of us have got this in our hand, and the internet is wild with some people are crying already, and I think it's quite amusing. But I thought I'd just make a video and talk about what I think of this book now that I have it and I've actually been able to read it properly. Now, we had the leak where the whole book was essentially leaked, and that was kind of cool. We kind of got a good idea, but like flicking through a PDF doesn't really help me. I like to sit in bed or on my sofa or take it to work and chill out with a brew and read my book. And there's just something about, you know, opening it up and flicking the pages. And that new book smell is always quite nice. But the book itself, first things first, the impressions of this one, which is the one that you get in the launch box. It is beautiful, like absolutely beautiful. It really is a quality book. Now, there are some really cool things in this. The actual story, the new lore around the Cities of Sigmar are amazing. It's like really grim, dark and nasty. It's like, this isn't like a really easy time for the soldiers of the Crusades and stuff. It's not really a good time for them, and it's like they kind of not all of them are volunteers. They're not all like living the dream and doing what Sigmar's will is all about. A lot of them kind of get press ganged into taking the shilling or Sigmar's coin, and there seems to be a lot of BS around Crusades going out, and there's kind of this sort of element of that the higher ups of cities, when they send these Crusades out, they're kind of expecting them to get killed. They kind of like, it's gonna happen, and they kind of dupe people into sort of taking this by basically essentially promising them that when the settlement is formed, that they'll get the first dibs on the land, and essentially a new city could mean that they could be the new nobility of that city, and it could have a lot of financial and benefits coming to it. The thing that they're not really going to get told is that there's probably a good chance that they're dead, because it kind of implies that once the settlement is built and kind of like sort of created, that all the Stormcast Eternals that are with them like disappear. They like leave for the front lines and push out further away from the city, and they're kind of relatively left on their own until it becomes slightly more firmly established, and then at some point the Stormcast Eternals will return to set up their own sort of like command area of the city that they will control it from. But yeah, it's very grim dark. Like, one of the good examples of the grim darkness is these guys, the Cavalier guys. These guys don't use lances like traditional knights do, because they understand that combat isn't just going to be decided in a glorious charge. They understand that they're going to charge into the enemy, and they're probably going to be there for some time, hacking and slashing, before the enemy either breaks or they kill the enemy, or they have to retreat. So they kind of like favor swords and axes and maces over like a lance, because they understand that this combat is going to be long, drawn out and brutal. And the whole thing around the fortification and why they have the shields and things like that is basically kind of like they kind of envision their army as a mobile fortress. So their army will move forward and set up the walls and go pew pew pew, and cavalry will be coming out, and the steel helms will be taking ground, and they'll move forward and build that new wall up, and they'll just continue doing it that way. That's kind of the mentality. And it's very, very brutal close combat and just savage warfare that they kind of do, which is really cool. I will say on a note as well, for the actual cavalry models, these things are amazing. Before we get into like what I think of the rules for the book, we'll talk about the actual kits. These are amazing. The level of detail on the kits are just stunning. Like, one of the things that I really love about the cavalry models is the helmeted heads actually have visors. So you can have the visor down or you can have the visor up. Whereas normally you would get like a head and it would have the visor up already. You can choose obviously which visor you want because it comes in two parts, the head and the actual visor. So as an example, I don't know if 3-2 you can see that. This guy's got his visor up. So that's really kind of awesome. The amount of options and stuff for each guy is pretty cool, as well as the decals as well. So you'll have a section of the decal sheet where you'll get the heraldry for the Cavaliers, because they are essentially knights. They give me a very Game of Thrones, old school fantasy sort of Reichland knights type vibe, and it's really nice update with what Games Workshop have done with them. The steel helms are, from what I've built of them, are really, really cool. Again, painting these models are also really fun because everything is kind of sectioned off, so the cloth is easily seen. The metallics are in their own little parts, and it's very simple and quick to paint, but they've also got an element of detail on them that kind of means that they're not so simple to paint, so which is kind of fun and nice actually. And as a painter myself, as a mainstay as a painter, I'm loving this army right now. So expect a lot of painting videos for these because they're definitely coming. As for the rules on the book, they're solid. It's a solid army. There are some interesting builds. Pardon me. There are some interesting builds that are maybe getting to get FAQ'd at day one, or maybe not. There are a few people that seem to think that they're completely busted. I don't agree, personally. I think there's a lot of elements that you have to pull in to make one essential unit busted, regardless of anything else. There are other armies out there that you don't really need to do as much sort of things to get these powerful players off. Whereas this, there is a clear build in the book that is going to be competitive for competitive play. But then I'm not a traditional competitive player, so I don't look at that and go, oh, that's what I'm going to do. I kind of look and went, ooh, the cavalry list sounds really fun. I can have a lot of these guys. And these guys hit like freight trains, like, by the way. They've got a crap load of attacks, and on the charge they're getting +1 rend and +1 damage on their weapons. And yeah, you can get them to strike first, and you can get them to have a 3d6 inch charge. They can get a free movement and all sorts of craziness. So they're a pretty solid army, the cavalry element of the army. So there are more than just the Fusiliers in this book that are pretty tasty. Obviously, there's the older stuff from the Cities of Sigmar previous army book is still here, mainly the humans, the dwarves, and the dark elves. If you do have a Cities of Sigmar army and it's mainly made up of the wood elf contingent, that's no longer in this book. The wood elves, the phoenixes, and the phoenix guard, they're all gone. I would imagine that as we progress into 4th edition next year and the Cities of Sigmar get another book, the human element may sort of get expanded on, but I have this feeling that we may see something like the dwarfs get expanded on with new models and things, and the dark elves itself disappear because there's a lot of rumours out there that the dark elves, aka the shadow elves, will be making their presence felt in 4th edition with a whole new range of dark elf models. and Malkith and all of that kind of stuff. So, which kind of makes sense because they're the only real element of the elven races in Age of Sigmar that haven't been updated from the old world into Age of Sigmar. So, yeah, potentially I could see that, which also means that when this gets a new book in 4th edition, I can see the Dark Elf element being removed and maybe expanding upon the dwarfs. What I would love to see is intermix between humans and dwarfs, because that's kind of like an old school classic fantasy combo. Even in the lore, you know, you had Sigmar himself becoming big friends with one of the dwarven kings, and they had that battle at Skull Pass or Black Pass, whichever one it was. And he got, you know, the whole sort of dynamic relationship between the two races has always been there. I mean, look at one of the best book series in the Warhammer Fantasy range, which is Gotrek and Felix, a dwarf and a human. So I think I would love to see Games Workshop really lean into that sort of dwarf-human aesthetic and really give us an army that captures that feel, because that's essentially what Age of Sigmar should be about on the Cities of Sigmar side. The dwarven element and the human element brought together, and allow the elves to go off and do their own thing. We've got the Lumineth; they're doing their own thing. We've got the Sylvaneth, and who are tree spirits. You know, the Dark Elves; they're going to do their own thing. You know, so give us this power couple, humans and dwarfs. That's what we want. But all in all, the book is pretty good. If you're new to Age of Sigmar and you want to get into them, I highly recommend it. I'm not too sure if any retailers still have stock for the new launch box. They might do. Check out your local retailer. I know Games Workshop don't, but check out your local retailer to see if they do. It's a really good box. You get, obviously, a really cool copy of the book with a nice front cover, which is really cool. One thing I like is this part at the back. So it's like, it says on the back in nice gold leaf, it says, "Civilization will rise again no matter the cost in strife and toil." And that kind of sums up this faction in an entire nutshell. It's very grimdark. It's very balls to the wall, let's go for it and dig deep and just grind it out. And that's kind of their mentality. And it's really cool. Like the some of the lore in here is absolutely fantastic. And it's some of the best that I've read in any of the new battle tomes. It's really, really, really cool. And kind of a surprising sort of view of the human element and all of the cities, to be fair, which is really kind of awesome as well. The miniature range is beautiful. Some of the models are absolutely gorgeous, especially the newer part. So that's mainly the human side. The dwarfs are still the old school dwarfs from Warhammer, the Old World. And again, we know that the Old World is coming out, and a lot of those kits are going to be usable in the Old World. And it kind of makes me think that they're probably going to get updated as well at some point for Age of Sigmar. And so, yeah, there's the element here for the human side. I think the dwarfs are probably going to get an update, and I do like the dwarfs. You can actually play a proper dwarf army in this, which kind of interests me because I'm a big fan of dwarfs. And also one of the cool things as well is if you play Cities of Sigmar, you can actually field the wee man and not feel bad about it because this is where he belongs. This is the book that he should be in. In fact, he should just be in this book. They shouldn't just be a download. They should just put Gotrek in this book because that's where he belongs. He's definitely a Cities of Sigmar monster. And he's kind of like this big, and he should be your centerpiece for your army. It should be really cool. So yeah, I would say out of 10, I would say lore, I'll give it 3 marks. The lore, I would say a good solid 8 out of 10. The models are by far a good 9 out of 10. The only reason why I'm not giving it 10 out of 10 is purely because there aren't more of them. That's it. I mean, you've got the Steel Helms, the Fusiliers, the Big Ogre, the Cavaliers, and then a handful of heroes, and that's basically it. I would have liked to have seen something a little bit more. Maybe a new steam tank would have been pretty cool. I understand that they're probably going to get more stuff in the future, but you know, I just want to be greedy. And rules-wise, I'm going to give them a good 7.5, 8 out of 10. There's going to be things on day one FAQ. There's going to be people upset with regards to points and changes, and I don't personally think any war scrolls are going to get changed come the FAQ straight away. I don't think that's what they'll do. I think they'll adjust points. This little guy here is causing a lot of issues. He's only 90 points right now. He'll probably go up to about 120, 130 points. The Fusiliers are 150 points. I'm expecting to see them go up to 160. The wheel, and if no one knows what the wheel is, it's basically a named character. She's kind of being carried by two guys on a big chair, and she can kind of basically do a handful of things. And one of those things is basically snipe out mortal wounds onto wizards and priests anywhere on the battlefield. 1 or 2 plus do D3 mortal wounds. And if she's outside of your territory, she can do 2 things. And that'll either be a 5-up ward save on an 18-inch bubble around that model, and the sniping out of wizards and heroes on a 2 plus. Currently, she is only 150 points. Personally, I think that's too cheap, and even I'm planning on playing this army a lot, and even I can say that that's too cheap. So I can imagine her going up to something like at least 200, because she is really quite strong, and she kind of brings a lot. Now, granted, she doesn't really do much regarding combat or anything else, but it's the buffs around her. She's kind of like a crazily good war shrine for Cities of Sigmar. So, yeah, I can see her changing. Fusiliers definitely probably go up about 10 points. Cavaliers, I could probably see them staying where they are. They're quite expensive. And I think everything else is relatively okay. So, yeah. But anyway, before I start rambling, I'm going to go. So if you like my content, please drop me a subscription and ring the bell. And if you're planning on doing Cities of Sigmar, drop a comment in below and let me know about it. And we'll have a chat and exchange ideas. There's going to be a lot of Cities of Sigmar content coming. There's another couple of painting videos for them. There's going to be a painting video over on my Patreon. There's a link below for the Marshal. There is currently a painting video up there now for worn leather using the new Warforger. And yeah, that's it. I'll catch you in the next one, peeps. Goodbye.